Good morning, everybody. This is Celeste Carmichael, Program Development and Accountability Specialist here in Extension Administration. I want to welcome you to the Building Campus County Connections webinar series. Today, our topic, as you know, is overcoming challenges to delivering 4-H STEM programming. So we have about an hour and a lot of good things to cover. But before we get started, I just want to take a moment to make sure that everybody is on board with Campus County Connections and what this series is about. And, you know, we've been talking about and hearing about the need for strengthening our Campus County connections, and so this is just one way of doing that. And it's an effort to help folks know a little bit more about maybe some things that are going on campus, some research partners that have reached out to Extension colleagues, and for our colleagues on campus to know about the strength of the cooperative extension system and how that may benefit the work that they're doing. So if you've tuned into this series before, you've heard me say that our system, cooperative extension, works best when we model reciprocity and the strong ties between research and extension. We've got lots of good examples of how that works, and today we're going to hear quite a few good examples of how relationships have been built and how that's strengthened what we do as a university and a land-grant university. So without going any further into that, I'm going to turn over the microphone. Whoops, got the wrong slide up. Keep going. Just for fun. Hold on a second. To Nancy Schaff. And Nancy, as you're getting started, I'm going to put our first poll up, which is just asking who may be joining us and what roles they play. So go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. This is Nancy Schaff. If you don't know me, I work over in the Bronfenbrenner Center for Translational Research in the State 4-H Youth Development Office. I am the State STEM Program Specialist, and support all the field staff out in the state to do 4-H STEM programming and work with people on campus here. So today we have some people with us. I recruited some people who I thought were really good examples of people who have been really successful with 4-H STEM partnerships between campus and county. We'll have Tim Davis with us, who I always think of as an exemplar for someone from the county who makes connections on campus and is very deliberate about it and has been very successful, and I think people can learn a lot from Tim. He is in CC Ontario County. And we will hear from Susan Hoskins, who works in the Department of Crop and Soil Sciences with IRIS, which I can never remember. It's the Institute for Resource Information Sciences. I can never get that. And Susan has also been an exemplar representing just a wonderful collaboration between campus and county around geospatial sciences. And because of Susan and other people, Chip and Jim Hooper, and we have a really just wonderful 4-H geospatial sciences program. And then we also will have Ileana Betancourt with us, who we have been working with. We've been working with many people over at the Lab of Ornithology the last couple of years. It's a very successful partnership, growing our relationship with the Lab of Ornithology, which is a wonderful resource to us. We are so lucky to have the Lab of Ornithology here at Cornell, and they are a world-class institution and are known for this high-quality citizen science programming. So we're trying to build a collaboration around increasing citizen science at 4-H. So Ileana will be talking about that partnership. So the speakers are welcome to introduce themselves more if they'd like to. So today what I was trying to do is present some really successful examples. I hope that it'll cause people to ask some questions and think about those examples and how we might all learn from that, and you know, maybe replicate some of these things, and what can we take away that will really help us impact our programming with youth. We are also going to follow up with some kind of a Qualtrics survey to ask some more questions about Campus County Connections around STEM programming, because we realized as questions came up that we just couldn't cover them all today as part of the webinar.
So, Nancy, I'm going to close the poll just so you can see. If you look up on the screen here, you'll be able to see we have majority of 4-H staff, a couple of partners, and a couple of executive directors also joining us, and other CCE educators as well. So, so just so you know who's in the audience there.
Great. Well, welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So I just was going to kick this off with just my perspective on some of the STEM programming challenges that I've experienced, that I've seen, that I've heard, getting out and about, working with the STEM program work team, working with county educators, things that I see are some of the challenges, and you may have some other ones that you would like to add from your experience. So my goal and my job, I feel like, has been trying to raise the bar. We've always done great STEM programming for over 100 years in 4-H, so we need to all pat ourselves on the back about that, because this is something we've always done and we're very good at. So starting from that perspective, we're trying to raise the bar even higher to respond to some of the things going on in STEM education reforms, the emphasis on inquiry-based teaching, and a lot of things. And we're basing a lot of that on the STEM checklist, which is a list of criteria for high-quality STEM programs, and on our state STEM logic model, which gives us what are our desired outcomes that we're going after, and our state plan of work, which is aligned. The logic model and the plan of work are aligned with each other. If you want more information on those, I can put, when I get done talking, I can put some links up in the chat box where to access the logic model, the checklist. There's also a 2-hour recording of a Polycom meeting we did in September 2012 about those topics, that if you are new or missed that, it's still posted and you could go back and watch that. So some of the other more specific challenges are, we are always interested in reaching a diverse audience, reaching the representative sample, the population that lives in New York. We wish we could reach every young person in New York, but we can't do that. But reaching new people, non-traditional audiences, that's a challenge. It takes staffing, it takes funding, it takes the will, it takes volunteers, a lot of things that are challenging about doing that. But we want to learn from each other where we do have successes, which we certainly do. Campus support and connections, which is what this series is all about. What are ways that people are successfully connecting to campus? We're going to hear about some of those today, and how that can strengthen and impact our programming. Developing effective partnerships. We have a lot of good examples across the state of how people leverage partnerships with other organizations to really impact their programming and be able to increase what you're able to do given the resources you have. And those partnerships could be, Susan's going to talk about some of this, could be on the local level, could be on the state level, could be on the national level. Funding and staffing, which of course all of us know are always a challenge. We always wish we had more money and more staff and we could do more. So that's always a continuing thing. How can we diversify our funding? And then this, working with other organizations helps us stretch the staffing and funding we have. Volunteers, of course, 4-H we are our volunteers. There would be no 4-H without volunteers. So volunteers are absolutely critical to us. We love our volunteers, and how can we support our volunteers? How can we develop them so that they can do this high-quality STEM programming? It's very challenging. Most of our volunteers are not trained educators, so how can we help them understand delivering quality programming? How can we get them interested? People are often intimidated and threatened by some of these things, so learning from each other about things that are working in that area. I hear a lot, working with the STEM program work team, we have heard a lot about curriculum. There's a lot of interest in curriculum. There's some projects going on with the 2 STEM-related program work teams, the STEM PWT and the new Youth and Nature and Outdoor Education PWT. There's been some people, John Bowe is very involved in this, Linda Broche, some other people, in trying to identify good curricula, do some revisions, update some curricula. So this is a big interest. People are very interested in Cornell-developed curricula. So this is something, that we also want to say, keep on our radar and learn from other people. And then we're going to ask you about other challenges that you may be seeing.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to open up a poll. This is an open-ended poll, so you can text in your, add in your questions. Know that your name gets tied to your responses. So if that's important, and just letting you know that when we close the poll and share the results, you may see your name attached to some things. So we're looking for other challenges that you've experienced with 4-H STEM programming, some things that that this panel may be able to respond to either now or in follow-up to this webinar. So Nancy, while they're answering that, do you want to, should we continue, or do you want to give them some time?
Well, let's give everybody a minute, and then we will move on to our first speaker, who's going to be Tim. Yeah, I'm putting some links in the chat box that link to the recording from that State Science Academy, the New York State STEM checklist, and the New York State logic model. Let's see if this works. Okay, so how are we doing here, Emma? Should we go move on to Tim and then?
There's three that are, yeah, let's move on and we can come back. How's that? Because there's a couple that are still in progress and haven't finished yet. So hold on a second. I have to, Tim, I'm going to unmute you there, and you're all set to get started.
Okay, take it away, Tim.
Thank you, Celeste. Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, everyone. I was looking a few years ago at the activities we were providing at 4-H Camp Bristol Hills and trying to identify why some of our older member programs weren't as successful as what we wanted them to be. So we started looking and reviewing at the program, and we were noticing that we did not have the depth of experience or the variety of experience for our older members. And it got me thinking back to what we did in St. Lawrence County during Dairy Bowl time, of doing a dissection of a reproductive tract. It was that oh wow experience that we were able to provide our members. And we wanted to get to that at 4-H camp, is what's that program depth for each of our age groups, each of our programs, that's going to be the right fit. And we were finding that we didn't have the depth because we didn't have the expertise on hand. How do we find people who have that level of expertise to take it to the next level, especially for some of our members, some of our campers that have incredible expertise, insight, information themselves? And then we looked at how do we go about recruiting those instructors to be able to come to either camp or the 4-H club program. As we all well know, our summer camp salaries are very low. That's not going to attract them. We have volunteers in the 4-H program, which is sometimes difficult to recruit for a certain level of expertise. We were wondering as to how do we bring those individuals into programs and how do we attract them? And then some of the programs took very specialized equipment and resources, and maybe it wasn't overly specialized, but it was enough so it didn't make sense for us to invest in those supplies or equipment to be able to use them once a year or rarely. So we were looking at access for that. And then we were thinking about how can we, if we elevate our program depth, how will that affect the marketing that we're able to do to attract new campers, new volunteers? How do we then also turn around and use that depth, that expertise, those new opportunities for experiences they can't get anywhere else with some of our current funders, some of our potential funders, board of supervisors, foundations, grants. So we were looking at just a variety of considerations when we made the shift. Next slide, Celeste, please. So we started looking at what the resources were at Cornell University. We are using a variety of other resources, both here locally and within the region, to support our STEM programming, but probably a good 60% of them are coming from the university. So we were very intentional in making those connections, spending the time, spending the money, getting on campus, and making those visits, making those connections. And I learned very quickly that I needed to research the faculty first. I needed to know what they were doing for research, what they were doing for outreach, trying to discover what they might want from me so that we could have that partnership. Are they looking at piloting curriculum? Are they looking for student outreach? Are they looking for internships? Trying to get at least a feel where when I knocked on the door or made the phone call, I could at least start that conversation. But I also needed to know the strengths of my own program. And we in the 4-H program have incredible strengths that faculty are looking for. And I think our biggest strength is access to interested youth in STEM. We have a number of campers, number of 4-H members that are very interested in wanting to engage in that higher level program, activity, event. They're very interested in that. But I also think the other expertise that we have that is very beneficial is our youth development expertise, especially in the area of STEM. A number of faculty, students know their subject matter really well, but we can do an incredible job in supporting them in how to be able to reach out to youth, how to engage youth, how to keep youth interested, excited about what they're doing. We may also have, resources such as a camp facility, an after-school program facility that's beneficial for them. We may also look at organizational support. You know, some of our partners are excited about the bookkeeping aspect that we can run the robotics program treasury through our account. We're looking at the risk management piece, which, you know, in the beginning turns them off a little bit, but at the very end, they understand the value of that and see it as an incredible strength that we have that background. So I think we bring tremendous strengths of our programs to faculty. And then it's also, however, understanding the limitations of our program and being clear with faculty about what they are. Our biggest limitation at 4-H Camp Bristol Hills is internet capability. We do have internet there, but it's very limited and did not meet some of the requirements of faculty who wanted to do research. So we had to come up with a different plan to address that. We also had issues with scheduling during the day in terms of how much time they needed to be able to do particular projects. But those are all doable, you know, when we're looking at matching up their needs with our needs. The one need, though, that I learned early to emphasize is the fact that whatever we do needs to be positive youth development. Can't be just research for the sake of research. It needs to be positive youth development. And that was hammered home to me when we had one faculty member who wanted to run a 75-minute activity followed by a 45-minute evaluation and survey. So we just need to work with faculty to understand what their needs are and be able to understand our needs and then come to agreement as to how we make that as a win-win situation. And that's the piece on communicate, communicate, communicate. One faculty member I met with monthly between September and June when we ran the program at camp, and that was incredibly helpful for us to be able to talk about each other's needs, how to be able to arrange things, to prepare our staff. That time spent is well worth it. And then the last one is invest time and money. It is going to take some of your time. It is going to take some county money to be able to get you on campus, make those phone calls, develop those connections. But what we're beginning to see is the opportunity to be able to now recover some of that money. We actually have 2 programs that are now supporting 4-H camp, you know, between the $2,000 to $3,000 to $5,000, you know, to be able to come out and participate in the program. And that works wonderfully well for us. Next slide, Celeste, please.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second here,
Please.
Tim. So I'm going to say 2 things. One is that Tim shows up regularly here on campus and knocks on doors, and we'll never underestimate the power of a cup of coffee or a time spent with a faculty or a staff member here. And I think that, you know, so the message there, I think, Tim, that, you know, that they may not see or hear in what you're saying, but I know because I've seen you here, is if you're on campus, taking a few minutes to figure out somebody to connect to, even if it's informally to learn a little bit about what they're doing and share a little bit about what you're doing, and just, you know, I mean, even if it's informal sharing that may lead to something else, is time well spent, and that's that investing time in the beginning, just to hear a little bit. So, while you were talking, Bev Mancusa shared the question, am interested in learning how Tim learned what faculty were working on. So as I move the slides forward, Tim, if you want to just respond to that for a moment, that would be great.
A lot of it is looking at Cornell's website, Cornell's reports, anything that's giving you information about CALS and human ecology. I'll go through, actually my home page is Cornell's homepage so that I can see who's doing what, and always thinking back through, is this a potential opportunity to connect with a partner? And it's just not CALS. Probably one of our best partnerships is with physics department, which has worked really well. So it's just trying to look at all those reports that we get, all the newsletters that we get, and seeing where those partnerships could be. Even though this is not STEM related, we've gotten a number of good partnerships from the Youth Research Symposium that happens each June. You know, so it's just really trying to pay attention to what comes out of the university to be able to identify what staff you could work with.
Super. Thanks, Tim.
The next slide goes through a number of the partnerships that we've been able to develop on campus related to STEM. We did a food science camp a couple of years with the food science department at Cornell University. They sent down a grad student, a professor, they brought the supplies. All we had to do was promote the program and then help supervise the campers while the grad student actually taught the program, and it worked wonderfully well. We reach into Cornell Center for Materials Research for a number of kits that we've used in our STEM camp. The physics department sends down a professor, grad students, to be able to teach our campers how to make crystal radios, which has been extremely popular for our middle school aged campers. Jim has worked with Susan on the GeoSeekers 4-H Club and all the specialty projects that they have done, including mapping out fire hydrants for a local village, which is being used in fire trucks. We've connected with Health and Brain out of Human Development, where they're wanting to pilot curriculum material with our campers. Nancy and I worked on the Science Sampler Day, where we were able to bring 4-H members throughout the state to the campus, connect them with, again, faculty, grad students, get them into labs, participate in higher level STEM activities. Charlotte Kaufman is always wonderful to work with. She is helping with the Smart Girls program that is currently a club program, but next year will transition into a camp program. And Charlotte is working with Minnesota to pilot materials. And then we did a large program through DEA on energy awareness at 4-H camp, which was led by Sean Teedy out of Wyoming County. And that was a great experience to engage our campers in identifying the changes that we could make at camp to be more energy friendly. So that's just a list of some of the things that we've done with Cornell faculty.
Thank you, Tim. Nancy, I'm just going to share for a moment the results of our poll.
Great.
And so you can see as in the question of what challenges have you experienced in STEM programming, some of the responses were engaging youth, coordinating with schools, working with K-3. It's difficult to find activities for those younger youngsters, engaging in wider audience, and it's not just science kids, implementing across diverse geographic and social groups, adequate staffing and funding. I'm not a 4-H educator, but I've worked with 4-H with a 4-H educator when energy is the topic.
Yay.
Getting leaders, volunteers to lead club activities related to STEM. Most of them love the idea of STEM, but when you give them activities lessons, they shy away from it because they don't feel comfortable with the materials. Being able to explain activities clearly to different aged after-school groups. I would like to see us use a few STEM project areas to center on, to center on, and want my staff to determine one specific project areas. There are so many. Connecting appropriate ages to activities. Also, it's difficult to know who will be attending programs even when registration is required. Some lack of funding, the locations of trainings, and then, there were quite a few no answers, but there's a little bit more,
that's great.
more fuel.
This is great data for us to collect, and the program work team will definitely take a look at this.
And Celeste and Nancy, this is Tim again. I'm going to jump in very briefly. Those are the types of questions that we were asking ourselves a couple of years ago. And they're very difficult questions, and it really is very county specific on how you address those. But there are ways to be able to address those. It just takes time.
And I hope this is just the beginning of a conversation and a lot of thinking about this where we can all learn from each other.
Okay, and so I think we're moving on to campus connections, right? And so we're going to open up another poll. We're going to keep you engaged here. And so if you can take a moment, this is just a simple response. So if you can take a moment to respond to this as I'm going to move the slides forward to Susan Hoskins. Tim, there's a comment here. I don't know if you saw it. It says, I'm curious what you mean when you say it worked really well. Lots of different ways that it may have worked. What kinds of things worked from your perspective? What were you able to build on? The sparked interest of kids seem to have, maintain the interest, help propel the kids towards being able to understand and use STEM in their lives. And Tim, if I can ask you to respond to that in chat, just because we only have an hour in the in this presentation, and we've got a few other topics. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
To get to, and I think that the idea is that we'll be able to continue to respond to these kinds of questions.
And some of these, Jody is from the Lab of Ornithology, so some of these things are going to come up when Ileana talks too, I'm sure.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much, Celeste. This is Susan Hoskins, and I am delighted to have been invited to be on this panel to talk with you. I'll speak for the large effort and team of geospatial sciences, but really there are any number of STEM-related programs with Campus County Connections that could have represented the challenges and the successes of working with between campus and county. And I can begin, there's animal science and horticulture and entomology and food science and fiber science, and the list can go on. So I'm honored that I get to represent. On that slide that I've got up there for 4-H geospatial science programs, I put a map up there, healthy dining choices at the Great New York State Fair. This is what we were aiming for in this program. This map was produced by youth who were providing leadership at the state fair. They went out to the state fairgrounds, hiked around, took their GPS units, made decisions about which vendors had options for healthy food choices. They came back to the youth building and created a map in ArcGIS using ArcGIS software. So you can see all the combinations of our mission mandates coming together in addition to learning technology and STEM topics, but also that critical youth development piece of taking leadership role in sharing with their colleagues and with the adults at the fair, because they turned this into a flyer that they handed out to fairgoers. So in terms of the snapshot of what the Geospatial Sciences program is about, that map is a good example. Our ultimate goal was to engage youth in applied projects, and we do it with the tools of geospatial science and technology, GPS units for learning how to locate features on the landscape, GIS, Geographic Information Systems, to do mapping, both hand map, manual mapping, and digital mapping, and using remote sensing, such as aerial photographs or satellite images, all for the purpose of an applied project of community mapping. Our goal was not to do the direct servicing of youth, although we do training of youth. Our goal was to build capacity generally in the system by providing training, making equipment. You know, Tim mentioned sometimes you need specialized equipment, and we know that could be an obstacle to some groups. So we have an equipment loan, GPS, laptops, tablets, all kinds of things. Technical support as an obstacle to when you're working on a project and you bump up against, I can't get this to boot up, or I can't get the, I'll embarrass Celeste. I don't want to embarrass Celeste. Celeste borrowed GPS units, and there was an issue with adapters, and so we're trying to be there and to provide resources to educators. To do this, as I said, I think of the whole system as the team, because every educator that we interact with teaches us as much as we share our knowledge. But we do have a program staff that facilitates that, and I'll give a shout out to Jim Hooper from CCE Ontario, Chip Malone from CCE Genesee, and my colleague Steve Smith, who is the GIS program leader at IRIS. Okay, next.
I'm just waiting 13 seconds until the poll closes, and I can't move forward until then. So keep talking, and okay. I will move forward as soon as I can.
So the next slide that comes up is going to be the list of challenges. And what I tried to think of was features of our program that that evolved over time to help make our program so successful, and I mean that in terms of the educators have been able to really utilize the resources that we provide. So I was thinking about how we developed partnerships, how we delivered effective training, how we leverage national connections, how we apply field of study guidelines, and then how do we engage external collaborators. Okay, next slide. Can you go to the next slide?
Yep.
Oh, okay, there we go. So our county and campus partnership, I look at our partners from two perspectives. They're learning partners in that we're providing training in a STEM content area, but we also depend on our county partners to be our experts, whether it's educators who have experience in geospatial content because of their particular interest, and we corral them into the team, and we certainly depend on the staff, volunteers, and youth for developing a network and getting the word out, sharing these resources. And in activity development experience, the folks in the county are the ones who have, and again, as echoing what Tim said, the youth development expertise that perhaps those of us working on campus don't have as much experience with. Oh, I put the participant at the end. Okay, next slide.
Okay.
In terms of providing training, I'll use this as an example of how we moved into working with 4-H. My colleague Steve Smith and I are extension associates, senior extension associates, and we've been doing trainings with extension folks across the state as well as other audiences. and doing educator professional development. But it was in these casual contexts of learning that the learning that there was interest in developing a geospatial training for 4-H. And it started with a camp collaboration. And we worked together to develop a grant to do training. This was a Smith Lever funded grant. And we went out and worked with camp staff. That evolved into expanding it to after-school educators who worked with after-school programs and in clubs, and we did our trainings on and off campus, all very hands-on. We also offered webinar trainings as follow-up and ways to continue to engage with remotely with other audiences. I'll also say that as the audiences that we're working with, we've been training more and more volunteers, which is really encouraging. And if there's an obstacle that I see to the training with volunteers, it's that the word doesn't always get out about training opportunities on campus. I know it's difficult for volunteers to come to campus, but if the opportunity is made available and we know that people are interested, we might be able to work out ways to provide training. So the third challenge or opportunity is our national connections. In the geospatial, 4-H geospatial world, we have the benefit of ESRI GIS grant program. ESRI is a major manufacturer of GIS software, and they are very much in the business of promoting the use of this software with youth audiences, and they've got a special program for 4-H. What you see there in the photographs is a 4-H team in the blue shirts who are invited from all over the country to go out to San Diego to the conference. So they're supporting youth in mapping activities. And the bottom photograph is Andy from Jim Hooper's club, and he's presenting at a professional conference talking with the GIS professionals. So we have that national connection, that national support connection. We also are involved in national 4-H teams, support teams, working with other students and educators in GIS forums, and that's the GIS GPS, and the leadership team that's part of that is the 4-H.
Is that what 4-H GG lead?
Geospatial,
okay.
Yeah, GIS GPS leadership. And students are responsible for being on a monthly call and working on projects remotely. I'll give a mention to E-Extension. There is a geospatial community of practice. Although we don't have a youth community of practice, they are active there. And I don't want to leave off the fact that from National 4-H, there's the initiative for promoting science through the E-Academy initiatives that they've been sponsoring over the last 4 years. And we, in the geospatial world, have benefited from being involved and aware of the resources in curriculum development, evaluation, utilizing those resources. The fourth resource, raising the bar, as Nancy put, raising the bar in STEM, is relying on the standards that have already been developed in geospatial science. We lean into being aware of Common Core standard for math and English, but we also have access to the Next Generation Science Standard, which, by the way, looks remarkably like our STEM checklist. So it's a matter of learning the vocabulary, not so much learning a new way of doing things. Geography for Life is another standard that applies to our, it's for K through 12, and it's got a lot of good ideas. And then in geospatial science, we also have the Geospatial Science and Technology Body of Knowledge, which, although it applies to higher education, is important, and the core competency models, which exist for many jobs, and so that's relation to what Chip put in the chat box. is available as we think about job training. And finally, we've been able to engage external collaborators because of all this capacity that we've developed in our state. So NASA brought us on as a leader in their Adopt a Pixel project, and we're still doing trainings with that. It's a citizen science project, and I'll be happy to share more with that off discussion here. And then a local partner, Pictometry. While we would love for both of these to be able to provide us with lots of money to develop projects, they've done something as valuable, and they've engaged with us on a very personal level, that they're interested in youth and engaging them in the use of these tools for their own community good.
Okay. So before we go on, I'm going to share the results that came in. So Nance, can you see those? You want to respond at all?
So we asked how people are engaging in Campus County Connections.
Let's see.
So we have, looks like the one with the most people is using Cornell developed curriculum. And then next, and then there's a lot of others. So hopefully we'll see some suggestions, some of those things you could put in the chat box. That'd be great. Participated. We have worked with faculty members, so we have 25% who have worked directly with a faculty member. Research project. 4 people have worked with a research project. Research Navigator is a program out of the College of Human Ecology, connecting faculty and cooperative extension educators.
And I'll stop you right there. You may have seen in the chat box, Linda Law Saunders had mentioned that in June there is another Research Navigator training that's specifically for those that are in NEA FCS, or Family Consumer Science group. But in order to be an associated member, it's just a $25 fee, so then you would be able to come to that training. So if you're interested in learning more about Research Navigator, there is information up on the CCE website.
Thanks, Linda. And there is some discussion about trying to do a similar thing with 4-H in the future. So we have a few people that have used research data, and only six people who have been able to come to campus to do STEM professional development. So that to me says it would be nice if we could raise that number and have more things going on in campus, but there's challenges with that too.
All right, great. Well, our final poll before we go on to our final presenter is about the Lab of Ornithology. So if you can take a moment and respond to the last poll. And let's see, Ileana, I am going to open up your microphone here.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I'm going to pass the ball on to you as well.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And is there any way that we could try to finish the poll?
Sure.
Within a minute? I challenge everyone to get that done in a minute.
Oh, yeah. It says 35 seconds. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, it's still 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, so because knowing the results of this will help Ileana to address her comments, if you could go ahead and just respond to that now. Look at that. You sped them up a little bit here, Ileana. So go ahead and take a moment to just respond to that quickly if you have ways that you've interacted with the Lab of Ornithology here at Cornell.
Okay. And I'll go on to the
Like
next
I said,
slide.
this is Nancy. We've been thrilled to be able to build our relationship with Lab Ornithology, and it's been a lot of fun and a great learning experience to be able to work with a bunch of folks over there.
Thank you, Bev. I'm reading your comments in the chat. All right. So I'm going to go to the next slide, and maybe while I'm on the next slide, the poll results will be out. But hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on the call today, and my name is Ileana Betancourt. I work with an educational program called Bird Sleuth at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and we focus on education for kids ages K through 12. We offer resources and support to educators so they can provide fun and exciting science learning experiences to kids. Do you think is the poll finished up? Let's see.
Yep, I'm going to, there.
Oh, I see the results.
Yep.
Oh, good. Looks like a lot of people have been involved with the lab, so let's see, about 10 people on the call have used the curriculum resources, 8 have visited the lab, 7 have participated in citizen science projects. Awesome. I'm going to mention that for those of you who aren't familiar with citizen science. So just put that in your back pocket and I'll come back to it. We have 5 people here who are working in the project that I'm about to talk about. I did browse through the attendees and see some familiar names in there, so I'm glad to see that. So that's great. I'm glad to see that a number of you have been involved with our resources here at the Lab of Ornithology. So over the past couple of years, thanks to grants from the Noyes Foundation and Smith Lever, we've been working with counties all over New York. And you'll see from this New York county map that the counties that are colored in are the ones where we've partnered with 4-H extension agents. The red counties are the ones that we partnered with in 2013, and the yellow ones are from this year, this current year, 2014. And orange, which might be a little difficult to see from the red, are the counties where we've partnered in both years. Actually, if you see your county on there and you're the person we've been working with, I welcome you to put a little shout out in the chat or chime in at any point if you have any comments or personal experience or stories that you want to share or elaborate on from what I'm saying. So being on campus and never having been involved with 4-H programs before, I mean 4-H was introduced to me when I first joined the lab a couple of years ago. And I can tell you that it took a good amount of time. This is, I guess, where a challenge comes up, and a good amount of time and exposure to fully understand the ways in which 4-H has operated throughout the system as a whole. And the nice thing that I learned is that there is a really wide variety of 4-H programs, and I do think that understanding that could be a challenge to folks who might otherwise be open to collaborating on campus. So I think one of my suggestions to people looking to connect to campus members is to make sure that they really understand the 4-H system and what your programs are and what you're looking to do. In our case, part of the nature of the partnership that we had with these counties from here at the lab was to see what educators needed and how we could support them. So that kind of created a naturally flexible relationship with county members, which is really nice. So as you can see from this map, we really had a nice reach of educators and counties from across the whole state. And last year we were lucky enough to be able to have a workshop at the Lab of Ornithology where we were able to bring educators from around the state to our facility to train them with the resources that we were hoping they would pilot for our project. This year we have mostly been working off of webinars for trainings to see how that goes. And we've also been working not only with within New York, but across the country too, so webinars are the easiest. So our goals for the project, oops, I'm jumping ahead. Our goals for the project are to connect these educators to resources that would support citizen science practice. And this is where I'll explain citizen science. It's the part, well, I guess if you have a definition, go ahead and throw it in the chat. This little picture of a globe with puzzle pieces is supposed to be a little bit of a clue. Anybody have any comments on thoughts, definitions of citizen science out there they want to throw out there?
Ileana, did you see the question from Chip Malone about is Project Scarlet Tanager still in operation?
Oh, let me see. Yes. I'm not familiar with Project Scarlet Tanager, actually. So if you want to, if there's a link to that or if you want to elaborate, that would be great. As far as I know, Project Scarlet Tanager isn't a citizen science project here, but maybe it's something that a faculty or a grad student was working on. I'd be curious to hear more. So citizen science is a partnership of everyday people, or essentially any citizen of the world, is how I like to think of it, working with scientists. And in citizen science, people make observations and share them with scientists, which helps them to provide a big picture of what's going on. It helps put the puzzle pieces together to help us understand what's going on in the world. And in the case of our largest citizen science project here at the lab, we're trying to find out through this project called eBird where the birds are. It also helps us find out where the birds aren't, too. Our resources that we provide for educators are flexible and easy enough to use in a diversity of settings and can provide that bridge to citizen science. So part of what we're looking to see is if that can be true if our resources are usable for youth development in 4-H. Because of the diversity in learning settings that 4-H offers, I think it really provides a variety of different ways to reach youth, which is very, very exciting. So in our project, something that we're looking at is the positive youth development pathway towards science literacy, or what it takes once interest is sparked for kids to identify with science and be able to contribute through civic engagement, which is one of the mission mandates of 4-H. Science literacy, just to be clear so everyone understands, it means that if we're able to provide science literacy to kids, they should be able to understand and critically think for themselves about science. The nice thing is that this is a lifelong skill that helps them no matter what career field they end up in, and it can help them become an informed, knowledgeable voter and citizen of the world. And what's been really important towards forming a successful partnership has really been that match in, I think, the common goals between us and 4-H, because we're looking to provide quality STEM resources, and we're providing these to the 4-H educators that are partnering with us in hopes that it'll help spark students and kids in their interest. And similarly, the county 4-H educators want top-notch STEM curricula that can offer fun learning opportunities for kids and fit the 5 Cs and mission mandates.
So Ileana, I don't know if you saw there's a question in here about alternative energy, and the concern that students identified is wind turbines and potential negative impacts on bird and bat populations. Are there any known citizen science projects working related to that you want to respond to or comment on?
There isn't a citizen science project on it, but I think I know of a few of the scientists here who are looking at that. And if you, here I'll write in my email. If you want to email me about that, I can try to direct you towards those people or some articles on what they're looking at. So I'll just write my email here.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, and I'm going to go to the next slide. So these are the curriculum that we've been working with the 4-H educators that they've been piloting. And at the end of each of the curriculums, they're trying to implement citizen science projects. And these projects aren't necessarily specific to birds. The Nature Detectives curriculum is more general, hands-on, getting kids to learn about habitats, and so some educators are using that as a start to get involved with citizen science projects such as the Lost Ladybug project on campus. And then some are using it for eBird and Project Feeder Watch, and there's a citizen science project on sunflowers that someone's also going to be working with. And while most of these resources, I do want to point out they're not branded 4-H, they are high-quality materials that have been field tested with educators. The one thing that we haven't tested with educators quite yet that is 4-H branded is our 4-H BirdQuest. So I'm going to put in a small little plug that we want you to try it out and let us know what you think. I can also provide a link to that as well. It's a free download, and it's just 6 simple activities that work towards getting you to submit and become comfortable with eBird's citizen science, and it takes about 2 hours. So I think another nice thing about these curriculum is that you don't need to have a science background to be able to be comfortable using them. So for the educators who are working, who are on our team, who are working with volunteers who might not necessarily be comfortable with science, there's enough background within the resources to allow them to implement them confidently. And really working with 4-H has been so wonderful because everyone is just so enthusiastic and pleasant to work with, and they know how to work with kids, and they know how to work with people. So, I mean, one of the things about our resources is that if you don't know how to implement them well, it's not going to work out. So it's really important that the people who have them know how to implement them with positivity and enthusiasm, and it's really wonderful to see the 4-H partners pick it up and go with it in those ways. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or email me, or I don't know if we have time for Q&A now.
I'm not sure that we will. We're getting pretty close. Nance, do you want to kind of wrap things up? I'm gonna steal the ball back here, Ileana, just so I can move on to the last slide.
Well, I thank everybody for joining us. I hope this has just been the beginning of a conversation and a lot of thought about how we can all move forward together to build on the great things that 4-H has always done. And every time we've been talking a lot about next generation science standards with the PWT, and every time I hear about these things about science reform, it's like, but that's what we've been doing for over 100 years. We have been doing this. We are the experts. So I think we need to really toot our horns and let people know that this is something that we're really good at and we're really proud of, and that we do a great job, and we can always strive to make the best better. So we do have listed here the speakers' contact information if you want to contact anybody for more information. Feel free to put questions in the chat box at this point. We have a couple minutes. If we didn't get to all the questions, we'll be able to save the chat and follow up on some of these things. There were some people I responded to individually. I'm sorry that we could go on and on forever, and we don't have time to talk about everything.
Nance, can you put a plug-in for the 2 PWTs related to science and youth?
Yep, so I've listed the 2 program work teams, and of course STEM, I can't say these are the only 2 program work teams related to STEM, because certainly the healthy living ones are too. I mean, STEM pretty much incorporates just about everything. I mean, it certainly incorporates nutrition and health and, social sciences, and so it's, we find that the mission mandates are not silos. Everything flows among the 3 mission mandates, and I think that's the way it should be. So, but I did name the 2 that are more specifically STEM, sort of in the STEM realm. The Youth and Nature and Outdoor Education, which is a fairly new program work team, and we'd love to see more county 4-H educators join that program work team. If you're interested, you can contact John Bowe. He is the county co-chair, and then there's the 4-H STEM program work team with Susan Hoskins and Candace Freer as the co-chairs. So if anybody's interested in that, it's a long-standing, very well-established, very successful team that has gone under many different names over the years, but has always been a very productive group, and is a fun group to be on. And
I think it's actually the oldest campus county team that we have.
It goes way back.
Way before there were PWTs.
Yeah, it was an existing science technology. I remember from the early 90s as a science and technology team that morphed into a program work team.
So Nancy, there is a question from Karen Green about STEM lending library and kits, and how do you find those? And I know at one point in time the K-12 STEM outreach group here on campus had a lending library. Do you know anything about that?
What you're referring to. We have robotic kits in the state 4-H office, and right now I'm working with a NASA project where I have some kits. But there's different things you might be referring to. There's the Cornell Center for Materials Research. They have an outreach program, and they have kits that they lend. That would be the most likely candidate. There's also the physics people at the Accelerator Center have some kits. And then there's geospatial.
So maybe we can put is there a link on your website to all of these different lending libraries?
Well, we are in the process of developing a new 4-H website, so I will add that to the list, because I don't think there is a good list. But Karen, feel free to contact me. My email is there here on this slide, so if you want more information. But sometimes those campus resources can be very challenging to figure out. That's one of our challenges.
And any of these folks are happy to help, or I can help as well. So anytime you need connections and figuring out who to talk to, please do ask. So we're wrapping up our 10:30 came quickly here. I want to thank all of our guests. We had a wonderful panel today, sharing expertise and ideas and experiences, and I hope it was valuable to you on the receiving end of this as well. We have a couple of more Campus County Connections that are coming up in this season of Campus County Connection webinars. We started off the year, this is our second year of doing these on a monthly basis. Started out the year thinking we were just going to do one a month, and there's been several months where we've had more than one, and May being one of them. The Invasive Species Statewide Outreach Extension Program, PWT, is going to be presenting on the 28th of May, and we got to the point where we didn't say no anymore. Well, the schedule's full. No, we can't do that. No. What we were hearing was that these webinars were useful, and I hope that they are. So as we prepare for a season of Campus County Connection webinars in the next year, 2014, for the fall, we'll start again in September and run until May or June of next year. Please do let us know if you think that there's a program or a department or a PWT that should be featured. You'll see that there's also another 4-H related Campus County Connection webinar coming up in June, and that one is Raising the Bar, Getting Youth Engaged in the Environment. So we hope that you can join us for that. As always, we have attempted to record this, and we'll post this along with any of the resources up on the Campus County Connections website, and I'll send a link out to the system after we're done. So thank you again. Any closing comments that you would share?
Yeah, just there are a lot of people that we've generated some things in the chat about. So Chip Malone would be the person to contact about energy resources, because Chip also want to contact about geospatial. So either of those things. So yeah, there are a lot of resources in those areas. Chip's been doing a great job with generating energy resources. And then look forward to a new and improved 4-H website at some point over the next few months.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great day.